I am Gayle Nix Jackson. My grandfather was Orville Nix, who took the opposite side of the home movie of the assassination footage. His shows the grassy knoll. And unfortunately, his camera original film is missing and has been since about the House Select Committee days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. There's copies everywhere. I mean, everyone can see it all over the internet. But as far as having it analyzed by a nonpartisan group, that can't be done unless we have the original. I mean, it could be that you're asking for room for error. It would be better if we had the original film where there's no loss of, that's the exact moment when he was there, no loss of, how shall we say it, detail. If we had that, then we could determine, was there someone on the note or was there not? And we just need to find the answer. We need to know. So it is my goal to find my grandfather's film.
Tell me a little about the history of that film. I'm sure that Orville Nix realized immediately after he filmed it what he had filmed. Can you tell me a little about the events that happened right after he filmed it?
Actually, he didn't. He and my grandmother, my mom, and I went down there to Dealey Plaza that day. My grandmother, my mom, and I got stuck in the crowd, and so we couldn't make it down to where he was. And so he was standing at the corner of Main and Houston, and as he caught President Kennedy in the motorcade coming around, he took pictures, and one of the senators from Texas, Ralph Yorba, waved at him, and he thought, he didn't really much care for Ralph Yorba. So he went running down Main, and as he was running are when the shots began. And he did not even realize he was taking assassination footage. His Keystone camera had a grip on it, and he was so anxious and so scared, about what was going on. He was just gripping it like you would squeeze your hand when you're nervous, or like when you're driving in a rainstorm, you grip the steering wheel. That's what he did. And so he knew he had the Maine and Houston sequence, but he had no idea that he had the assassination footage. So he looked down after it was over, he looked down at his camera and he realized that he had lots of film left. And being a very frugal man, thanks to my grandmother, he thought, well, I guess I didn't get much. And so he came back the next day and to show my grandmother where he had been standing, and he filmed it again, and he still hadn't used all his film. So later on that week, and now we're talking a week after the assassination, my father called and said, Dad, can you go take footage of my wife's little brother's girlfriend? She's performing at halftime at a football game. So I went up there, and I tell you, there's more of the football game on there than there is the assassination sequence, but he used all of his film, dropped it off at Dynacolor on his way home, and they called him in the middle of the night and said, you've got assassination footage, and we've got to turn it over to the FBI. And he said, well, I work at the FBI building, and I'll take it. But because he was the air conditioner mechanic for the FBI building, the General Services Administration. So he and my dad went to Dynacolor and watched his film on a white wall over and over and over, until the technician said, oh, Mr. Nix, we better stop because the light bulb was going to burn the film. And they did that, and they took it to the FBI the next morning. Hello?
Well, Gayle, what was the government response to the Nix film?
There wasn't much one at all, to be quite honest. And he took it to Time Life magazine, who said, well, we'll give you $3,000 for it because we find it to be a nuisance film, which hurt his feelings, and so the UPI bought it for $5,000. Now you have to remember that Time Life paid $150,000 to the Zapruder for
the Zapruder film. Yeah,
and they gave my grandfather $5,000, and it became lost during the House Select Committee days, and we don't know why. Now, why would it have become lost? Why? I mean, it's a piece of evidence. There's no other film that people were aware of that is missing, but his is. So.
And an interesting aspect of the Nix film is that it's from a vantage point from the other side, across the street. So you're almost seeing the Zapruder film in reverse in one sense.
That's right. That's right.
Well, tell us a little about your book and about what you discuss in the book.
Oh, it is about how my grandfather was treated by the government and by the media. It is how, when he was asked to tell the truth, he told the truth, but then was told to say something different. And Beans is how this was a man who went through the Depression, who loved his government, who didn't want to make any waves for his job. He did pretty much as he was told. He got phone calls that were threatening. There were people bothering him, and in the long run, he really wished he had never even been there that day. But the thing about his film is there are many conspiracy theorists, and I consider myself a conspiracy realist, honestly. I don't think that the government told us the truth about what all happened, and that's why I believe in a conspiracy. But it talks about that. It talks about how one of the technicians who saw the film in the early 70s said that he saw a figure in the background and pointed that out to UPI, who sent it off to ITech and to the JPL labs, and after that, no one talked about it. So I don't know. I wrote the book in the hopes that if someone knew where the film was, that maybe they would get in touch with me, or to make people aware of how evidence and how people were treated during that time. It wasn't a good time at all. And everybody was busy calling Dallas the city of hate. Well, it wasn't really the city of Dallas that killed the president. It was someone who didn't mind about killing the president, but they did. And I'm going to go along with Jake, my friend Jake Carter, and say, I don't think that Oswald is an innocent patriot. I do have questions as to whether or not he really took a shot, but I don't think he was innocent in any of this. So there you go. The book is not a dry book. It gives you a little insight into my grandfather's life and into my life as I tried to get the film back into our family and found that it was missing. And all of the people that have given me all kinds of excuses why it's gone, from Robert Blakey to Arlen Specter to President Vicente Fox to a sheikh in Dubai. I mean, one of our senators here in Texas, who's no longer with us, Phil Graham, that I've spoken with all these people, and we still can't find it. And it's an important piece of evidence that needs to be found. It could answer questions that we all have answers about. Was there someone on the know? This is the film that could answer that question.
Absolutely, and there's material that would be revealed by the original film that you lose some of that with the later copies. Exactly.
So that's why we need to find the original.